Bruxelles, je t'aime. Tu m'avais manqué, Bruxelles, je t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime. T'es ma préférée, Bruxelles, je t'aime, Bruxelles, je t'aime.
Hello there, welcome to Brussels, my love, Euronews' weekend talk show. I'm Maeve McMahon, broadcasting from Strasbourg, where MEPs met for their second plenary session of the term. Thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up on the show, after working for years on a common asylum policy, EU member states are at each other's throats about how to manage migration. Germany has reintroduced border checks. Hungary is threatening to send busloads of irregular migrants to Brussels, and France has appointed a migration hardliner as Prime Minister. What could this mean for European unity? And is the border-free Schengen area about to unravel? And after some delay and quite some last-minute drama, the EU Commission President has revealed the faces that could surround her for the next 5 years, a bit like the ministers in her cabinet. Ursula von der Leyen's so-called college will now have to be approved by the European Parliament. We take a look at the tug-of-war between capitals for the most prominent positions and how the shock resignation of France's Thierry Breton played out. A warm welcome to our guests this week. Sergej Lagodinsky, German MEP from the Greens. Brigitte van den Berg, Dutch MEP from the Liberal Group, Renew Europe. And Matej Tonin, Slovenian MEP from the European People's Party, former Defence Minister of Slovenia. You're all very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. But as usual, before we bring in your views and your opinions, let's just tell our viewers what's been dominating European politics of late.
Halfway through Hungary's presidency, Viktor Orban has caused a stir. Budapest is refusing to pay a €200 million fine for breaking EU asylum law. Instead, it wants EU money to control arrivals. This fight comes as Germany reintroduces border checks. The move contradicts the purpose of the EU's border-free Schengen zone, hailed as one of the biggest achievements of the Union. Meanwhile, in a bid to address integration, Sweden is offering to pay migrants who volunteer to go back to their country of origin. Former German Chancellor Angela Merkel once said multiculturalism had utterly failed. 14 years later, with a dysfunctional EU asylum and migration policy, we ask, was she right?
So, Sergej, we look at you first as the German here among us. I mean, how big a deal are these border checks for Germans? You've, of course, got 9 land borders.
We've already been having land checks, land border checks in the east of the Republic. It was met with protests, but if we're realistic in terms of the freedom of movement, it did not have that hampering effect that many have suspected or feared. However, it is a big change and a big shift in terms of our self-understanding of what our borders mean to us in a united Europe, and especially in Germany, where one border across the continent and the wall fell. This is, of course, a big change in terms of our thinking about our security and our borders.
A big change that could be here to stay. We'll see. Of course, you're from the Netherlands. You border with Germany and as well for Belgium. Do you think that Schengen, so the beloved passport-free area, is slowly unravelling?
Well, I'm very concerned about it. I think we should not go down the slippery slope. It's so important. It's such a strong value of Europe that we can move freely. And I also think it doesn't help. It doesn't help against terrorism. It doesn't help against criminality. What really helps is investing in the police.
Investing in the police. What would be your take, Matej? Do you think it helps, or what is the solution?
Let's be honest. Fake solidarity is killing European Union. And we have to tell that European Union simply cannot accept everybody who wants to come to the European Union. And because we are not dealing right with the migrants and with the migration as an issue, the Schengen area is simply falling apart. So look what's doing Germany, for example, Austria, many other countries. We have border controls again.
And is the EU asylum pact that we've been reporting on for years here on Euronews, that was finally sealed off on a couple of months ago, is that also falling apart? I'm looking at you, The Dutch government has said this week that it wants to opt out of it before it's even been implemented, bearing in mind the Dutch coalition government now, and it was also the minister, I believe, from the Freedom Party who's made this announcement. What kind of policies could they then replace this with?
Well, of course, they got a very quick answer from Europe that this is not the case and that an opt-out is only even a topic when you make a new treaty. So it's more symbolic than that it really helps something. And I think it's going the wrong path also. It's really showing the wrong symbol.
And it's sending a message to the Dutch people, and other people will be hearing that message and think that they can just rip up this asylum pact, Sergei.
Well, I mean, this is the problem about the whole discussion that we had. And in fact, it's a problem about how you describe the dilemma in your presentation. It's not about multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is something different. Multiculturalism or our diversity in our societies works quite well. Of course, we have issues, but this has nothing to do with migration. When we're talking here about migration and security, this is being put together, then added some diversity issues, and then you have a populist cocktail that is really poisonous.
But then why is Sweden using that argument then and offering tripling the amount of money that they want to offer to people to leave?
Because indeed, for too long, we haven't been addressing the issue, and I was skeptical about the asylum pact, about which you're telling. This asylum pact will be in force only in 2026. It is not even functional, so this is wrong what many in Netherlands are saying. Mm-hmm. But this is a democratic decision made by this parliament and by this EU, and we should wait for it. And the fortifications and controls should be on the outer borders, external borders of the EU, not in the Schengen.
Matej?
I think we have to know simply who is coming into our house. And that's the main...
But our house is the European Union.
Yeah, our house is the European Union, and we have to know who is coming. And those who comes here legally are welcome. Because of the demographic trends we need.
Exactly. So and the majority, in fact, are.
The only problem is with those who are coming here illegally, and to those who have to send clear messages that the ones who are coming here illegally will be swiftly returned back to their countries.
Yeah, on the external borders of the European Union. But we're talking here about bringing back borders between your country and your neighboring countries of the European Union.
But the borders are coming back because we are not doing the right protection of our external borders. So if we would return swiftly those who are here illegally, that would send a clear message to all traffickers, to all those who have planned to come to the European Union, that if you come illegally, you will be returned. So then we have to strengthen our external borders, and what I think we have to build special centers, migrant centers in the third countries.
Well, that's what Italy's doing.
The people can come to those centers in a civilized way, and they can apply to enter in the Union, not to use traffickers, not to go through the dangerous path or through the Mediterranean.
Yeah, that's what Italy is doing. Italy has signed a pact with Albania. That's where they've set up these centers. Is it right to trust in other countries like for this?
I mean, we have to be realistic about migration. First of all, when it comes to asylum, we need to go within the human rights, and we have to make sure that people can't come here illegally. I totally agree with you, but that also means investing in the safe routes, and that means also investing in legal ways to come into Europe and to be part of our workforce.
And irregular migration is down. If you look at the statistics, in fact, from Frontex, the arrivals this year have actually dropped in irregular migration, and the majority have come legally to Europe. But we're hearing from so many different capitals that we have a migration crisis. But we don't really do.
Because this is a conscious choice, and even our colleague here, I mean, what you're saying is we're having a problem at external borders, and we're introducing checks on internal borders, on the Schengen borders,
I'm not saying this.
Without solving the problem of the external borders. For external borders, we do have the asylum pact, and this is the solution, the European solution. And you are doing a nationalistic...
So if you're not saying that, what are you saying?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we as a European Union are not swiftly sending back those who came here illegally. And that's why we have a constant flow into the Union, because people outside the European Union are simply thinking, look, somehow we will solve the problem and somehow we will stay in the European Union even though that we came here illegally. And the message is wrong, and we have to switch the message. And that's why I think that more important is swift returning than protecting our external border.
Well, you were in government in Slovenia.
Yes.
Did you make swift returning your priority when you were with Janša in the government? I thought the priority that I saw was a populism a la Orban.
Look, I think
didn't see any...
this is a classical political accusation, but believe me that our government dealt with the migration in a totally different way. And the numbers were way below which we have it now under the leftist government. So
this is a national solution, and the EU has nothing to do with deportation.
And because I don't want national solution, I want a European solution. I said that we have to, as a European Union, swiftly return back those who are illegally
And right now,
for common migration policies, finally, something that we have been advocating from the progressive side for years, and that national governments and conservative governments are against. So let's have finally a migration policy.
Because we certainly do not have a European solution now, and each country is going its own way. And in a sign that each country is going another way, you mentioned Viktor Orban. Well, the Hungarian government just last week was threatening to send busloads of irregular migrants to Brussels. It started a full-on confrontation with the city mayor, Philippe Close. Take a listen.
Az Európai Unió, Brüsszel arra akarja kényszeríteni...
Should the European Union, Brussels, want to force Hungary to let in the illegal migrants who have been detained so far, who have been arrested 1 million times at Hungary's southern border, then Hungary, after following the European procedures, will offer these illegal migrants voluntarily, free of charge, one-way travel to Brussels. If Brussels wants migrants, they can get them.
Illegális migránsokat akar, akkor Brüsszel ezt megkaphatja.
The Orban government is becoming increasingly unbearable. What is crazy is that he presides over the European Council and is responsible for finding a consensus between us. I'm the mayor of a capital city with 400 million Europeans. It is obviously important to show that there is room for everyone here. But to provoke and to not seek political solutions, in reality they have been condemned by a court of law. They won't admit it, but that's the rule of law. But Mr. Orban has a problem with the rule of law.
Monsieur Orban, il a un problème avec l'état de droit.
So the city of Brussels there getting stuck in the middle, really, of a spat between the Commission and Budapest. What has been the reaction, Brigitte, here to that threat to send migrants on a one-way ticket to Brussels?
I mean, this is another childish act of Orban, and we should really stop him, because we'd have to take ourselves seriously. We, as the 27, have to come up with the right policy to make sure that that people can stay here when they have the right to stay and go back when they need to go back. But these kind of childish acts don't help anybody.
And Viktor Orban was actually scheduled to speak here in the Parliament this week, had to cancel his trip, of course, due to the flood and the devastating weather that we've seen in Eastern Europe, but he should be coming very, very soon. But how should the Commission, Sergei, be reacting to this?
I have no idea how the Commission has been reacting, but I think that nobody takes Orban seriously with statements like this. We take him seriously when it is about destroying democracy, when it is about flirting with Putin, when it is, by the way, about letting a lot of Russian citizens with very low security checks into the countries to build nuclear reactors. And this is really scaring a lot of our Balkan friends and Eastern European friends. This is when we take him seriously, but not with this childish thing.
Do you think he would follow suit?
No, I think because we don't have efficient European solutions, we have nations who try with the very creative, sometimes childish, sometimes stupid solutions. And that's why I think that in this term we need efficient solutions.
But what we do really have to take seriously is that we're talking about real people here. We're misusing people that are quite vulnerable, threatening to put them in a bus and just taking them around Europe. I mean, how can we even talk about people like that?
And indeed, just this week, we saw 8 migrants died crossing the English Channel from France to Britain, but it hardly even makes the headlines anymore. But we have heard from the lawmakers here in Strasbourg, and now I'd like to bring in some people from the streets to get their opinion, their view on whether we should open our borders here in Brussels or we should close them. Take a listen.
They should open the borders, but with regulations, with the certain rules.
It should be regulated, but the most important thing for me is that they are treated well and they can start a new life here.
We live in an open world. Why should you close borders? Every big nation that went down because of the closed borders.
Il faudrait avoir une immigration sélective.
We should have selective immigration. Welcoming everyone is a utopia. Of course, we should welcome people, but intelligently. We all need diversity, we all need to live together, but we cannot take all the troubles of the world upon our shoulders.
On ne peut pas accueillir toute la misère du monde.
So that's a flavour of what the people in Brussels think. What do your voters say to you, Brigitte, when you're out on the streets talking about this topic?
People are very concerned with migration. They see that we are not handling the right policy. But a lot of people also see that it's not an asylum crisis, but a policy crisis, that we closed all the places where we can actually shelter people and then say we don't have a place to shelter them. I mean, we have to really invest in a good policy which makes our open world possible.
And Sergei disagreed with Angela Merkel's comments there that multiculturalism has ultimately failed. What about you? What would you think about that?
Sorry?
Whether multiculturalism has failed. Is it functioning in the Netherlands?
No, I think it's functioning for a very, very large part. I mean, if we see how many people of different backgrounds are living together in peace, then it's going well. But we also shouldn't close our eyes for the problems we have in certain areas. Of course, especially when it comes to poverty or when it comes to, certain problems like building up, stacking up in bubbles within cities, then of course we need to do something about it.
We shouldn't underestimate the migration, and people are really afraid. My progressive colleagues try to undermine that this is not the problem, that you have just right-wing politicians, demagogues who are saying that this is a problem, but literally all over Europe, wherever you check, they have problems, and we have to address this problem in a common European way if we want that the things will change in the future.
If I may, I totally agree, and that's why many of our colleagues, also the Green colleagues, are part of this government that is doing this in Germany. For example, we never said that we will not deport people, but there are real problems on how to deport people, where to deport people. Some countries of origin do not accept those people, and these problems have to be solved. Not by busing people to Brussels. This is just bullshit.
It is indeed extremely complex.
Do you know the Australian model? You know,
of putting people on an island?
No, the Australia had a problem with migration, but it solved it with a strict way, in a way that they send very clear message: coming in Australia illegally, you will be immediately sent back. And I think that Europe should accept the same approach.
We're not Australia. We're not a big island in the middle of nothing. Europe lives in a different geography, and we live in a different time. And we will have to deal with the fact that we will need to regulate, but accept migration.
This is a typical excuse when progressive forces are complaining that Europe is not Australia. I'm not saying that we will search and try to catch those migrants who are circling around Europe, but somehow they will need us, when they will need social transfers, when they will need health care, when they will need work. We will immediately discover if they are here illegally, and if they are, they should be sent immediately
Also,
back.
we don't need the border checks. We will discover them anyway. So
Absolutely.
we have a solution.
Absolutely.
It's not a solution.
Absolutely. That's why I said that imposing border controls, what your government is doing, is simply wrong.
If we
I
look
think
at
we're
the
getting a clear
Ukrainians
flavour of the debate that took place this week in the plenary. This week also we saw Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, sit down with Giorgia Meloni in Rome, calling her attitude towards migration pragmatic. Last words with yourself there.
Well, if we look at how Ukrainians integrated within our European countries super fast, lots of them are working, have a place to stay, are making friends and family along other Europeans, then you see that it's a policy crisis. Then you see that if people have the chance to participate in society, it's much better than what we do now.
But could you ever see that sort of policy be applied to the rest? Very unlikely.
Well, I think it would be very interesting to, first of all, make sure that, of course, the borders are closed for illegal immigration, but the people that are here, make sure that they can be part of society.
And those who want to develop and help us to develop our societies, not those who just only want to misuse us in a way, that use our healthcare system, social system. So this is the big difference with the Ukrainians, as you.
It's also what you become when you don't have any chances. So it's like people are not black and white. People need a chance.
Indeed. And on that conclusion, we can wrap this conversation on a very, very deeply complex topic. For more information, please do visit our website, euronews.com. But stay with us, though, here on Euronews, because after a very short break, we'll be telling you which EU commissioner threw a toddler's tantrum this week. See you soon. Welcome back to Brussels, my love, with me, Maeve McMahon. Now, one major story that got us all talking this week here was the much-awaited announcement by President Ursula von der Leyen on what the incoming European Commission could look like. She's appointed 4 women and 2 men as her executive vice presidents to look after topics like foreign affairs, tech sovereignty and the industrial policy. Now, around 20 member states had asked for strong economic portfolios, but Ursula von der Leyen played down the titles, saying that commissioners should be political leaders and not policy experts. She also had a strong reminder for capitals who were not happy with their portfolios.
This is very important, I think, for the overall composition of the college. The commissioners are not the representatives of their countries. They are the representatives of Europe and our common cause. Therefore, disrespected from whatever country or member state you're coming, you can play an important role. Otherwise, it would not be the right approach for a European common cause.
So, what did everyone here think of the new lineup? Because you'll, of course, have to endorse them, Brigitte.
Yeah. I mean, it's already excited that there's a new team because the real work is going to start, right? But we have to be critical on that they are the ones that are really going to deliver. Because, yeah, we have a lot of things to do the coming 5 years and we need the right people.
And everything's on hold. This year, I feel like the whole year has been on hold because of the European elections. And, of course, we'll have to wait until probably early December to see them come into place. What was your group saying about that lineup?
We are curious. We are waiting. Of course, we would have wished that the parity, the gender parity, would be complete. So we would have 50-50%.
Now it's 40-60.
Now it's 40-60. Okay, it's better than it was initially. We are concerned about certain candidates. Of course, about the Italian candidate representing the post-fascist government. We will have to look into it and to him. From my perspective, it's interesting that we have a very strong Eastern Baltic representation on everything which is about external policies, and I think this is a chance for us as well.
And just you mentioned the Italian candidate, just to tell our viewers, you're referring to the Italian European minister who's on Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party. It's Raffaele Fitto. He's been appointed as the executive vice president. Will you give him the green light in the grilling? Because, of course, these candidates have to go through the test, which is a couple of hours sitting down with yourselves so that they get the green light.
In front of us are many challenges, and that's why I think we need a strong team, experienced team, and this was what Madam President asked. And I think that she, in the beginning, showed the strength. So the composition of a commission is, in a way, turned into the right direction. I think that current commission will be totally different than the previous one.
And will you endorse Raffaele Fitto?
We will see how he will perform at the committee.
Yeah, because it's no given that these candidates will get through. Even the Spanish candidate, the Super Commissioner Teresa Ribera, who will cover competition, industrial policy, the European People's Party in Spain have said they might not even endorse her, Brigitte.
Yeah, interesting.
So still a lot to play for.
I think it's the most important is that we ask them the right questions, that they can really commit to the things that need to be done. And I hope they really deliver and show that they want to fulfill the Green Deal, make sure that they make work of the Draghi report and get those things done. I'm really looking at the content instead of at the person at first.
And there was a lot of references to the Mario Draghi report. Mario Draghi was, of course, in town as well here this week. But let's talk as well about the drama of the week, the resignation of Thierry Breton, the Internal Market Commissioner, because the French President Emmanuel Macron decided to propose another candidate as the future French Commissioner and pull his name out of the hat. And Macron did this because seemingly Ursula von der Leyen asked him to do it. And in response, Thierry Breton made his feelings very clear in a surprise letter to Ursula von der Leyen, saying, "You asked France to withdraw my name for personal reasons that in no instance you have discussed directly with me. And in light of these developments, further testimony of questionable governance, I have concluded that I can no longer exercise my duties in the college." What did you think of that? Was that a good idea or was that more like a childish behaviour?
No, I think this is a show of strength. So she
what shows a show of strength?
She cut out the candidate who was not playing with the team.
So she was right and he was wrong?
I think if you are in the team can win. But if you are playing individually, then you have many problems. And that's why I think that this was the right move to cut off the dose.
Thierry Breton was not a team player. Did he put his ego ahead of the interests of the French?
I mean, everyone has an ego, and everyone in that commission had an ego, and of course the commission president herself has an ego. The problem is, and I supported and I voted for this president of the commission twice already by now, but and I am concerned.
About what?
If the selection criterion is whether someone dares to openly contradict the commission president, because this is a team, this is not a monarchy. And this is my concern, that if we make this to the criteria, Breton, I disagreed with him on many issues, but he was a strong candidate with a strong biography, with a strong expertise in this area. And we will have to see who will be able to fill his step.
And that's why the French political circles were very disappointed. They thought it was a big loss for France that he stood aside like that. But he went even further. I don't know if any of you are on Twitter or X, but he actually put a photo of a blank canvas on Twitter saying that, in his opinion, that's how the future commission would look like. So you can tell that himself and Ursula von der Leyen are not exactly best friends, Brigitte.
Well, yeah. I mean, my parents always told me, if you're not part of the fight, don't have an opinion about it, and I don't. I think we just need the right people, and we have a nice French candidate now, the Commissioner Stefan, and I think we have to look at the future.
And the drama did stir some reactions, of course, among the bubble. We saw Ricardo Borges de Castro, he's a political analyst in Brussels, complaining that the Parliament was, quote, bursting with egos, power plays and disloyalty, adding that that agony may come round even quicker than we think, referring, of course, to the agony that Mario Draghi described last week. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how those hearings or grillings go, Sergei. Should we have to sit tight? It could be a...
Yeah, I mean, we've been through this. Some of the colleagues 5 years ago, we vetoed 3 of the candidates. I participated in vetoing 2 of them in the Legal Affairs Committee, because this is the first step, and maybe some viewers don't know. In the first step, we are looking at all the 26 candidates in the Legal Affairs Committee with closed doors, whether they have conflicts of interest. And then they go to the respective committees and will be grilled there. That's where a French candidate last time failed. So we will see, but I think it's a sign of democratic process. And this is much more democratic than just firing the candidate that contradicted to you during your term.
And on that point, we can bring this conversation to an end. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for our MEPs as well for joining us here in the studio. Take care and see you soon. Welcome back to Brussels, my love. I'm Maeve McMahon, coming to you from Strasbourg. And another story that caught our eye this week was the proposal of the EU Council to cut the Erasmus Plus budget by €295 million. The student programme that came about in '87 has already seen almost 60 million people benefit. To hear how Erasmus students in Brussels feel as the new term begins about this news, we paid a visit to one academy for higher education, EX.
It's a bit of a shame in it. It's like education is a great equalizer in our society, and I think like having funds in these kind of projects actually give people a lot of opportunities to get out of the comfort zone and get more international experience and more international perspectives for their degree.
This is the project that got me the opportunity to come here to Brussels from Moldova and to study journalism, because, well, I'm really passionate about it. And even though I have been here for like 2 weeks, I already start to feel the changes and everything, and it's such a life-changing experience.
Such a life-changing experience there, according to the students, not to mention the languages, of course, that you can learn. What is your reaction to this news to cut this funding?
I think it's the worst idea. We have to make sure that young people can experience Europe when they are young, because they will carry that experience with them forever. And I think we should mostly invest in Erasmus, but also focus on that it's available for all pupils. My problem is that vocational trained youngsters, they don't participate in Erasmus so much, and they should much more, and then cutting budget is the worst thing you can do.
But you're a defence minister previously, and I imagine you were fighting with the education minister for stories for things like this. What would be your take?
But I can say that I totally agree with the citizens. Erasmus program was a European trademark. Here is how we built united Europe, and I'm absolutely sure that the Parliament, European Parliament, will unanimously fight against cuts.
The Greens too, I imagine.
Maybe add another dimension. It's cutting Erasmus, but it's also cutting Horizon money, the money that goes into research, which is also very important to position Europe now in this competitiveness race as a research hub. Also on that, we will have to talk and to have a say here in Parliament. And one other thing, playing the defense issues and support for Ukraine against Erasmus is the wrong way of putting it. A lot of that in the media, but also by some of the politicians, this is the argument why we should cut Erasmus. I think it's vice versa. We should expand Erasmus also to Ukrainians so that they can feel part of Europe as well.
Because, of course, the message this is sending to young people who are watching today, they're like, why are we being put on the bottom of the list when so much investment is going into other areas that feels very far away from their lives?
This is not the final business. We will fight back and we will see what the final results will be. I think that you can see the unanimous voice.
You can see that from all parties. It's not every day that all parties agree.
Yeah, it would be great if this could be really an act of the unanimous parliament, and that we can make sure that every young European can experience Europe. That would be amazing.
It's worth as well pointing out that Erasmus is not even enough. Of course, you need a little bit extra support, but if they even cut what is already out there, it could be very damaging, certainly.
Absolutely, and what you mentioned is there are also programs, and we should also have a look at them, not only for students of universities, but also for those from small enterprises, the vocational training so people. Important. There is also a program for that. They should also have a chance to do it in a neighboring country or in other European countries, and this should also be in focus of our attention.
And what about the UK government? They said they'd no plans to take Britain back into the Erasmus programme, and I've seen campaigners are furious about that.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, so many English students also participated, and now they miss out. But I guess, yeah, if you want to be part of Europe, then you have to be part of everything, and no cherry picking.
That's the price of the Brexit.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, on that conclusion, we can bring this conversation on Erasmus to an end. For any more information on the stories that we discuss here today, check out euronews.com. But for now, thank you so much to our panel, to Sergei Lagodinsky, Brigitte van den Berg and Matej Tonin. And thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can drop us an email. BrusselsMyLove@euronews.com is our address. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok and LinkedIn. See you soon.